regular meeting Wednesday, December the 18th, 2019. Our ways are in this element where you always take care of your people. We start with a prayer. With that being said, I'd like to address my chief and tell him that I've asked our uncle, brother, to pray for us and take care of our people. With that, let's rise. Shaka, I'll walk you through.
Chile, Hampadu, Judge, Viprakena, and Tati Wakanda, Jinki, the Ka. Hapa there, Datazani, Lita, Ispa, Nikashi, Lita, and Tati Wakanda. Kisto Mazi, Lita, the Ka, Janki, Lita, the Ka, Itu, and Tank, the Ka, Gashka, the Ekian, Homer, the Ka. Intati Wakanda, Wakanda, Jinki, Wajashi, Nikashi, Zani, the Ka. Wahoin ke nikashi dita the kaha, with opera dita ski at this time maybe more coming humpa there. Datazani dita the kaha, wajaji nikashi, vasoli, tonsoli, wakakoli nikashi dita the kaha, wakpai the wadila dita wakpai the kaha, dati wakanda in morning
Yeah.
Dati wakanda dita the kaha. Ojanki dikta the kaha, this sad path hampa the joa wili ekia kumbra the kaha. She the dati wakanda, ashi dikta the kaha, he doing daksha kaha, Ojanki dikta his angel the kaha, owo data zani the kaha, all the many things that lie in front of us, hampa the dati wakanda, jinki, wanaki zani dikta the kaha. Gashka, the Ekiam Kumber, the Kaha, Ashi Lita, the Kajoa, we Ekiam Kumber, the Kaha. Heavenly Father, this morning in this break of day, look down upon us in all the aspects of our Osage life. The future that we dream of, the presence that we work with, and the past that we treasure so much. Look down upon this body of people that come together in our name as shareholders, looking to our work and our protection and our preservation, Almighty God. We ask these blessings in your name. Name your Son, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Foreman.
Present.
Councilwoman Gray.
She will be here momentarily.
Councilwoman Harlan.
Here.
Councilman Redcorn.
Here.
Councilman Red Eagle.
Here.
Councilman Rebar.
Present.
Chairman Waller.
Present.
Secretary Hayes.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. That I'd like to ask, I'd entertain any suggestion from my council. Is there anything that I would request to add something to our
Yes,
agenda?
I would like to discuss our EIS comment consultant contract during the executive.
Yes, ma'am. We'll put it under item C in executive. Council, is there anything we'd like to add? Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Gray requested to add a request for newsletter articles under old business.
Yes, we will mention that under C. And I think that today will also give us some more insight on what we need to put in there. Lacey, is there anything else we would need to take care of that you see? Well, tell me when you do. With that, I'd like to go on and go into the item 4, the superintendent's report. I'd like to thank you for being here, Superintendent. Your director also.
Thank you, Chairman.
Deputy Superintendent, thank you.
The Osage Agency would like to report from the branch of field operations that 12 trucking permits were prepared, 1 ingress and egress letter was prepared, 24 well pluggings were witnessed, 13 leases were checked for production, primary term, 68 lease inspections were performed for 17 follow-ups, 9 gas meter provings, 4 tank trucks checked for permits, 2 tank strapping witnessed, 104 landowner lessee meetings were reported, 3 complaints were responded to, 7 spills and leaks were inspected with 22 follow-ups performed, 53 tanks were gauged, 4 tank bottom removals were witnessed, 4 run tickets were figured in gauger calculations versus purchaser calculations. The branch of lease management reported 24 leases were approved, 32 assignments were approved, 27 division orders were approved, and they issued 2 lease terminations. For oil and gas rentals collected for the month of November were $43,281.83. Oil and gas bonus collected was $3,600. Water usage royalty paid was $7,019. They reported for the month of November 14,848 wells. For those leases under 25 CFR Part 214, sales reported by lease, APAC reported 19,863.14 tons, paid a royalty of $18,479.93. Burbank Materials reported 17,828.15 tons, paid a royalty of $18,719.56. Candy Creek Crusher reported 11,825 tons, paid a royalty of $9,944.83. Schmidt Brothers reported 416 cubic yards, paid a royalty of $312. Rocky Banks, 378 cubic yards, and paid $219. We do need a correction for the subsurface mineral report. There were no workover permits, so instead of 1, it should be 0. We did approve 26 drilling permits during the month of November and 5 plugging permits. Subsurface reported that they did not receive any 208, so there were no new drilling completions during the month of November. The branch of accounting, total gas produced, or total oil produced was 338,172.04. Royalty barrels paid was 51,155.26. Total royalty paid, 2,734,907.36. Total gas produced, 644,828 MCFs reported. Royalty paid, $79,787.87. Total tank bottom reported was 888.26. Royalty barrels was 84.33, pardon me there. Royalty paid for tank bottom was $787.88. The branch of enforcement and lease compliance received 4 new EAs for 21 new drilling permits. They completed 1 EA. They issued FONSIs and NOAs for 4 new drilling permits. Of course, we'll have to wait for 30 days for those. Number of non-compliance letters issued was 13. Non-production letter issued was 1. Number of extensions provided for non-compliance to address non-compliance issues, 4. Number of final notices issued was 7. Number of spill remediation and reporting notice letters were 4, and 1 exemption approval letter was issued. And that pretty much concludes my report.
Councilwoman Foreman.
I forget the number, but as usual, you have either inspections/reviews. Did you happen to do any internal meter inspections in these?
You talking about metering internally?
Yeah, the internal.
No.
Yeah. I would think that, since our own consultant has already found that of the 3 meters that he inspected, all 3 had up to 11% errors. I think we need to start requesting at least once a year on these meter readings, an internal inspection of the meter room, because that's where the problems exist.
Superintendent?
Yes, please.
Can we get the Minerals Council to send me a letter to that request, requesting all of this to be performed? And I'll be happy to send something out to the companies.
What is your guideline on doing the internal inspection now?
Basically, right now, what we're doing is if they're contacting the agency, we're going out there and performing an inspection with them at the time that they're doing it. I think at the last Minerals Council, wasn't there somebody that basically said it needed to be done downstream or something to that effect? Who was the individual that was here?
Yeah, well, Teddy Pledger is our gas measurement consultant. And the meter run is, well, it has to be, the gas goes through the meter run before it goes to the recorder. The recorder is always very accurate. So inspecting the recorder, you're gonna 99.9 times out of 100, you're going to have a perfectly running meter recorder. It's the internal meter run that the gas goes through before the recorder. If it has a 1/1,000,000th of a nick, fraction of a 1/1,000,000th of a fraction of a nick in the orifice plate, you're gonna leave that gas, it's gonna cause gas not to be measured, but the gas is still flowing through. If it has liquid in the meter run, if it has coal dust on the plate, anything, it has to be like new condition, and that's an industry standard.
Yes, thank you.
I got a question.
For all of the gas that's going through that recorder to be measured proper. So it's imperative that, and it's industry standard, that an inspection of the internal meter run happen at least once a year. And we're going to create a rule to that effect, but until that happens, we would like for you to start doing it.
Second, Chair.
On your range of lease management on oil and gas assignments, you had 32 approved, 15 returned, including Mr. Long, returned in September, forgot to report. Why were those returned? What's the usual scenario on that?
I believe that Mr. Long is not completing.
He's not completing the process, it's like not turning in his fees for processing, or he's not doing his bonding. I mean, there's a number of things he's not completing, but it depends on, there's several ones that at least he's applying for, that he's been granted, but he's not completing the process on his part. There's several reasons why not, and that's just a few of them.
So I just seen his in parentheses. So his 15 was his, all 15?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
And I will say this, that yesterday I made a call to Mr. Long because we right now have a lease that has been executed by Mr. Long. He's met all of the requirements and the chairman has signed off on it. We've made several attempts for him to submit the $10 fee. And of course, everything that the agency is doing over there, we provide you with copies of our letters. So I made a call to him myself, and then I'm following up with a letter to let him know that he's got 30 days. Otherwise, we're going to close that file. We cannot continue just to have that file open. So we'll see what he does.
So are these assignments with his prior partner, or is this?
Yes, a lot of them are with the prior partner, and some of them are leases that you've been granted through the Minerals Council.
Okay, yeah.
But the problem is too, we're having a problem because lease compliance or lease management is trying to get a hold of him on all these issues, and he doesn't respond to us.
So with his separation from his partner, Mr. Drummond, 40 oil and gas, are they still having to go through the process where they do lease inspections and have to be compliant with all your regulations?
I believe most of those are completed on his. We're just waiting on his part on the process.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be happy to look at that again.
Thank you.
For next month.
Deputy Superintendent, do you want to add something over the?
But I was just gonna add that in the regulations, there's nothing in the regs to inspect the meter run, the meter tube, but we can, I mean, we can request that they do that. And I was just gonna reinterject what Robin had said, Superintendent, that if you give us something in writing, then we can request on behalf of the Mineral Council that they perform that inspection.
Yes, sir, and we can.
Okay.
And I was thinking though that under the actual, when it's put in, that standard is they go in at least once a year to
Right.
check the orifice.
Right.
We actually used to do that,
Oh, yeah.
to break it down, and all I'm saying, we'll have a letter sent to them requesting it, Councilman Foreman, Councilman Redcorn.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I want to reiterate that what Ms. Foreman's bringing up is a bona fide loss that's been identified. So we need to move quickly to get that closed down. You know, if it takes redoing the process or whatever, I'm in favor of, but somehow we need to ensure that whatever we're finding, and it's not only inside the orifice, but the length of the runs
Runs
to
out.
the meter, all those things are called into question. Those are below standard, and the way we do business on our side is if it's below standard, just shut it down until it comes into standard. So I'd like to see maybe why these are still allowed to run, or they're not meeting ASTM specs.
Councilman Revolt.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to remind the superintendent and the rest of the council that our consultant advised us that the majority, I don't remember what percentage, I think he had a percentage in his presentation, that the majority of our meter loops in Osage County are constructed in such a way that they're not accessible to inspect.
That's correct.
They're either welded, they don't have the flanges where you can take off nuts and bolts. This will fall back onto the purchaser because it's the purchaser who owns the gas meter.
Sometimes.
Well, in most cases, unless you're buying your own gas, most of the gas meters are owned by the purchasers. And I don't know what the contracts say in this regard. Maybe each contract is different, but it could be that we may not be able to force them to open up the meter. We ought to be able to, because our consultant said that he was adamant about is that 100% of the time, the error is always in the favor of the purchaser. And the producer and the royalty owner take it, you know, are the ones that are always on the short end of it, right? In 100% of the instances. So I just wanted to point that out.
Councilwoman.
Chair, point of order. If the council wishes to make that request by formal letter and ask the chairman to do so, that needs to be in the form of a motion.
I so move.
Second.
Second.
I'd like to know what the exact motion is.
The motion is to send a letter to the superintendent requesting annual meter run inspections on every gas meter in Osage County.
I want to leave it just like that instead of going to, because we are going to put a standard to that in regulatory items. I believe that also sets up the issue that we're going to talk about today with a Terra for the nation, and also with our ones here today, is that we need to look at this environment which we're adding. And with that, any other discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to open the floor.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray,
Abstain.
Councilwoman Harlan,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rebar.
Yes.
Chairman Waller,
Yes.
Secretary Yates.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Just give me just a moment. Yes, thank you. With that, is there anything we need to add for the superintendent? I'd like you to see a couple of issues that's coming up, then also whatever our chief has today.
I'd like to ask the superintendent a question. Superintendent Phillips, do you have any update on the OST system, the
Thank you, dear.
food hall with, them changing the system and trying to hold our shareholders' checks? Have they corrected everything?
I talked to Paula Reese yesterday because there was another inquiry that came in. And Paula said that they're hoping that hopefully in a couple of weeks, I don't know, but she said that yes, they're still working out all the kinks of the new system.
Yes, Councilwoman Harlan, then I'll go down the road.
Are you aware, I noticed on social media, there were some people that were complaining they hadn't received their direct deposits yet. Are you aware of how many people were delayed, or has everybody received their payment now?
I cannot answer.
We're not really aware how many. I know that we get them on daily call. We get numerous calls from people that haven't received their check.
Mr. Chairman, I would, before I yield to the councilwoman, I would ask that in the form of a motion that we ask legal counsel to follow up with OST to ensure all shareholders have received their December payment.
Seconded.
Second. I have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Harlan, seconded by Councilwoman Gray. Open to discussion. Councilman,
Call for the question.
call for the question.
I'm sorry, can we repeat it?
Yes, that we are going to have our council review the element of the payment to our head right owners and get a response from OST to make sure that it's been taken care of. And I have received a number of calls over this. And it's not, and that's it.
If I could clarify,
Please.
Ms. Harlan, Councilwoman Harlan's asking that all shareholders have received their payment.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, call for the question.
Councilwoman Gray?
Yes.
Councilwoman Harlan?
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn?
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle?
Yes.
Councilman Rebar?
Yes?
Chairman Waller?
Yes.
Second Chair Yates?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am,
Yes, I have a question.
please.
In going with the line of what we were talking about, that process, we understood that on the Bureau side, that there is a process that, when checks come into the lockbox, that lockbox was not checked for several days and there was a delay in getting those checks in, we were advised, by, the Bureau. And so, and we also were advised through written letter of BIA, and OST, that we are one of the few agencies left in the Bureau that still does this archaic type process where the royalty payments come in, they go into the lockbox, and then you have, according to policy, so many days to get that deposited. I'm still going. Oh. And then, we understood that, on this check, that there was a delay, which is, human error happens, we understand that. But my question to you is that, or maybe the action of this council through our attorney, is that we get up to 2019 where we can direct deposit these checks, where they can immediately get interest, and instead of that delay, we're missing interest on sometimes, thousands to millions of dollars that take a delay of getting into our account. So we probably need to find out to evaluate that process, and BIA get up with OST on how we can direct deposit. I mean, right now I can transfer $20 to Marcia sitting right here, and if we can do it that quick, it could be, I think that we need to get the technology up. And I think that's maybe looking at another process or updating that process. If we are one of the few BIA offices that are still doing that, we need to do something. I'm done.
This is actually like a twofold answer, so I think he's gonna answer a portion
Yeah,
of it.
as far as when money comes in, it hits the lockbox, and then we process them try to process them in 24 hours. And I'm not aware of any time lag where we have it processed in a timely manner, other than maybe on a weekend, because we processed everything. What happened this last time, we processed them, and we changed them over to OST, sent them to OST.
That's correct.
And once they hit there, then they wasn't being processed by OST. That's where the time lag fell in. And it wasn't BI. What happened was that money sat there, and some of it sat there for like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yes.
And that was due to OST's new system, having errors or having a problem with their system processing.
But it does draw interest.
Right, it does,
Can I
right?
It does.
reply to that?
No, let the
Yeah,
superintendent.
because that was a twofold.
Okay.
And I do agree, we are the only ones that do manual payments in Oklahoma. And one of the reasons being is because everybody else uses honor system. If by chance the regulations would have been followed through back in
Codified, yes.
2015, then there would be no monies that would actually be being processed. It would have automatically went in like what they do with the rest of Indian country, utilizing the Office of Natural Resource and Revenue. So,
We are also going to go into executive to take care of some of that as far as this council goes, and then it might answer some of your questions. Council? Need a second.
If I could make a suggestion that the Minerals Council and BIA OST get together and have a meeting to understand the facts so we can try to help diagnose the problems in the first place, then we can work on solutions. But if the BI plays a role in actually getting the check and putting it in the account, then it plays a role. So we need to make sure all of that, because that directly impacts head right holders. And particularly if head right holders are not getting paid, we've got that's a big, serious matter. So I think, but if we all sit down and figure out exactly what the facts are and understand the problem, dealing with the OST, they were wanting to help, but I think they had a lot of questions. There was a lot of uncertainty about the Osage systems because they were so different. So that's what I would recommend.
And I did contact OST the second we knew about the shortfall out of the lockbox, and I asked them to make sure that we have a listing of these accounts, because they can check them here immediately to know if they're paid or not, and that's what we will take in with our council going over. We'll see where that's at, and then we will respectfully ask that it's completed, so we know. And I need to go to my council real quick. Councilman? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say this, is that, you know, the moment we found out, the exact second that we found out, this council acted as expeditedly. We gathered, we met, and we were on this, and as well as directed by our legal counsel. So when we received the information back, and this comes from the higher ups at BIA and the higher ups at OST, that is exactly what that letter said. Now, what our responsibility, and make no mistake of this, is that we represent the shareholders. We need to make sure that they are getting their full amount as determined by, you know, by law and what is paid in. And to miss 3 weeks of interest was unexcusable. But I commit to being a part of that to streamline this, so we won't have shareholders that are waiting on their checks. We heard all kinds of stuff all out. People were talking about how everything was, but to know, I want our shareholders to know that this council acted quickly on it. And I know there was a little bit of a delay, and we had all kinds of people saying it was going to be a different amount. And but when we found out what it was, the total amount, we got it out, you know, quickly to the shareholders, and any other snafus that happened. So anyway, with that, I just want to make sure that we do follow up with that, what was recommended.
Thank you. Councilman Redcorn.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question about the rock and reporting here. I appreciate your work you're doing there at the Bureau, Ms. Phillips. First, I want to commend our council for acting quickly on the issue with OST and his attorneys. During the summit, I saw that going in, parted away from the event, and then started acting immediately for the benefit of our shareholders. So I appreciate that. The reporting on the rock, I just have a public comment, and we do have, and I've mentioned this to our council, Mr. Foxton and his group. I really think we need, anybody disturbing the ground in Osage County needs to come to our chairman. And that means construction, wind farms, you name it. And the chairman has the authority to give that entity a waiver, or we start negotiation and get paid for the material they're going to move.
Yes, sir.
So we practice that. In some instances, I'd like to see it countywide, because I believe any disturbance on the ground, the shareholders should have their share taken care of. Thank you, Chair.
Council. I'd like to go to Councilwoman Harlan and finish with Councilman Revard.
I'd like to make a motion to ask that Mr. Pipestem coordinate the meeting between OST, BIA, and Minerals Council before we get close to that March payment, so that we can avoid this mayhem.
Second.
Second. I have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Harlan, seconded by Councilwoman Gray, that we have our council go and get the meeting together. Finish up for me, please. With OST and.
With OST and BIA and Minerals Council members.
That's form of his motion.
Call for the question.
Excuse me, Councilwoman Harlan.
Yeah, I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion. I do not see the need to have our attorney who advises us on legal matters coordinate meetings for us. It's, with his charges, I think that's a little expensive, so I'm not in favor of having him coordinate our meetings for us.
That's fine. Council.
Call for question.
Council.
Councilwoman Harlan.
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn.
Yes.
Councilman Red Eagle.
Yes.
Councilman Rebar.
Abstain.
Attorney
Here, hang
Waller.
on, I'm trying to get you out here, quick response.
Chairman Waller.
Yes.
Secretary Yates.
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman.
No.
Councilwoman Gray.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Oh, and then
Yes, Councilwoman.
I just wanted to ask the superintendent, a couple of months ago, you did notify us when we were going out for gas meter inspections. I would like, if you don't mind, I'd like you to continue to do that because that worked very well. Because our gas consultant is at the ready, he's at our disposal any day we want him, so I'd like him to follow you out to those meters.
I actually sent you one.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yes.
Good. When is the
It's
inspection?
tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what,
And I sent
any
you-
possibility to get them?
Well, all regs on require that they give us 24-hour notice.
Oh, okay, and that's all you're getting?
Yeah, that's all we're getting.
But if you happen to get it sooner than that?
Yeah, I mean, if we do, I'll send out the best.
Okay, good.
But
Thank you.
I did just send a notice to.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Council.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a question for Superintendent Phillips. You, a little bit earlier mentioned owners accounting system. Have you heard, or can you tell us how that's proceeding? Are they getting close to being able to implement that for Osage County?
Until such time that the regulations are revised, then no, they have no authority to be in Osage County. And right now, at this point, the lockbox is actually a module of the TAMS, which is the Trust Asset
Asset Management
Accounting
System.
Management System. And that is a BIA and an OST system. OST has access to that system just like BIA does. So when things are deposited, whether it's an EFT or it's a check that goes into the lockbox, the agency basically processes if the lease is actually something in the system, such as an oil and gas lease and it's rentals, then the agency is able to do just a matching, where they just match that invoice up. But if it is like royalties that's coming in, due to the fact that we don't have a system in place for that, we have to do a manual deposit or a manual transfer, and that's what has happened. We gave all that to the minerals account, to the Office of Special Trustee. Their system went into effect September 25th of 2019, same date that we got a big payment. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to be processed due to the new system. So hopefully, and I feel certain that by the next payment, because we are using the TAMS module for Osage to make distributions of the annuity payments automatically. So by March, I would say that this should not happen again.
That's correct, because TAMS was brought in after the honor wasn't put in the regulations, but it still codifies that you can do it electronic. And we do have to find the quicker route,
I
sorry.
think I was recognized, thank you. You had mentioned honors is being delayed until the new CFRs are in place. Can you give us an update on when you think that might be?
No, I cannot. Kristen Kokinis is the one that is working on that. So your best bet would be to ask that information by legal consultation.
Thank you.
Or directly, sir,
Or
in our
directly.
case.
Due to the time strain and Chief's here, and others are here, I suggest we go on with the agenda.
Thank you. Any other questions? With that, I'd like to go into new business. Osage Nation Environmental Solutions LLC presentation. Shonka, Mr. Redigo, please.
Thank you, Chairman Waller, Vice Chairman Yates, Mineral Council, thank you for your time. First, I'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and these holidays. In front of you and in your packet and on your laptops are our qualification statement that One's LLC is bringing to you this morning, and an update and a recap, and I'd like to share this same document with the superintendent and with the principal chief, who will be looking at the same information. One's LLC in the last 18 months has been working diligently to reach a certain point and a certain profile of the company, and we've arrived at that particular destination. In it, we have achieved the status of 8A certification, HubZone certification, as a small business-owned enterprise, wholly owned by the nation. And what this gives us now is a national presence in the profile of economic development opportunities within the federal sector and commercial sector. In the company profile section, you'll see highlights about our activities right now. We're in the company name, the DUNS number that we work under, the leaderships that we have in place. Mr. David Conrad, our president, who apologizes for not being here. He was called away on personal business. And Ms. Jackie Jones, this particular document was written before we had a chance to update it. Ms. Jones has been elevated now to Vice President, Chief Operations Officer, and that is the way I will learn. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Our SB, as I said, our SBA status now, we are 8A certified and HubZone certified. We'll be working under the primary NAC code, they say, or the federal contracting, and along with not only environmental consultation, you'll see us in the areas of scientific, technical, and management consulting in the environmental fields. The area I want to direct your attention to is key capabilities. You can see within it where we see our company now able to, with confidence, to bring to a given project the analysis, streamlining, communication, and strategy aspects which require in moving into various projects in and around environmental consultation and environmental activities. In order to do this, we've had to put personnel in place, and we're very, very satisfied with our management team that is in place, and you see the listing of them there. Our good friend and relative Paul Yates is in as our project manager consulting at this time and activity. Mr. Ray Clark, who has extremely high level experience with the federal government in environmental analysis. We have brought on board a gentleman named Scott Stale as our science environmental individual. He will bring in a very close linkage to the Corps of Engineers regional area, as well as oil and gas production. David Conrad, as you know, has extremely high relationships with the houses of Washington and various tribes throughout the nation. And I want to again mention Ms. Jackie Jones. Ms. Jones came on as administrative assistant. We brought her into the activities of operation. And Ms. Jones has earned the right to be elevated to vice president level, because she has acquired 8A and HubZone proficiency. And in our nation, in our tribe, we have very few people, individuals, that are proficient in that category. We have her now working with multi-networks throughout the nation and with the tribes and activities that has put the Osage Nation, economic development, and ones out in the forefront in discussions with various networks of opportunity, economic opportunity. And the aspect of contract acquisition. Now we are at a point where we can confidently acquire contracts of which we are, and that falls into operations, and that's where Mr. Jones's talents pays off extremely well in acquiring the completion of a given contract. But I want to address yourself then, as we know in this time period that we're in, to the very last paragraph, that we are aware of the draft EIS. And with high regards and high respect for the House of Pipestem and the House of Store and your involvement with them in relationship, we are not here to challenge that or in any way other than try to say that one staff has the abilities and personnel and capabilities to be of a working relationship, sharing the challenge of a final EIS that will set the destination for generations to come in this environment of Osage County. We feel that we can aid in streamlining communication, strategy aspects, engagement of the public, and bringing in the whole comprehensive view of an impact of an EIS statement, and help to deliver that to the Mineral Council, shareholders, and the population of Osage County as a contractor set by your standards and your desires. So that's where we feel confident today. After 18 months of diligent work, we've arrived and able to present ourselves as a viable working partner in achieving a common goal. So with that said, I want to thank you all. Any questions, I'm available.
I would just like to first comment is that that's quite an achievement getting into that 8A section that's going to walk right into the nation's element of what we're going to discuss with our chief. As you know, that even some of the larger tribes, Southern Utes, were given contracts last night through the Bernhardt that we knew we're going to see. And that's why we're going to have a visit today over exactly that. What is going to be our response along with the nation? Does council have any questions? Councilman Redcorn.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Red Eagle. I appreciate the report. Looking over your key personnel, I noticed you have 2 Osages. You mentioned Ms. Jones is 3, so appreciate the ability to solve our own problems. Maybe you have more. I do agree. And I've had this conversation within our group and our attorneys, but I really feel like we're not grabbing the full breadth of our tribal authority written under the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act. All those items, it seemed like the discussion has totally not included our nation and all their capabilities, including ones. So if there's any way we could move that kind of discussion, I know Mr. Yates heavily involved up there in many tribes in the Northeast. The expertise you have in environmental, but really, I'd like to see it. We'd like to, how can we mesh the nation's authorities under all these environmental acts and get them into this EIS? Again, I've said it publicly, we've totally ignored our authority. And I'd like to see it make it where we're in a driver's seat when it comes to environmental decisions in Osage County, not the feds. And it seems like this EIS is just driving straight for more and more federal activity in this county when we should be doing it as a nation. Thank you, Chair.
Waving on. Councilwoman Gray, then Councilwoman Foreman.
Yes. Thank you for coming today. We appreciate that. You know, I've been familiar with ones for several years now, and coming in and seeing that growth of it's like now you've got everything ready to pull the trigger and go. But I have to agree with my colleague across the room here, is that it would be good to see the actual maybe a flow chart of the people that would be doing overseeing an EIS or streamlining. I know that we have spent some money on hiring an outside consultant. But I believe that if we're able to use our own resources to utilize our own Osage-owned businesses, that's what this is about. This is really, it's a responsibility of our own tribe to utilize our own businesses. And we just need to see that you have a qualified person, an engineer that can oversee that. And I think that's, I know you have it, but we don't see it in the document.
Right.
And I see that, we have good leadership at the top there, but we need someone to know that they have experience on reviewing EISs, especially in this county, in this area. So if you have that, then, if you can share that with us, it'd be
All that
great.
can be first.
Councilwoman Foreman, then Councilman Reddy.
Okay, I would like to
Record.
get a copy of your presentation if I could.
It's on our board
And,
book.
but my, oh, well, if it's probably in our board book, but my computer's
Yes, ma'am.
acting up right now, so, thank you very much. But, my question for you is, are you planning on making a comment on the, during the comment period for the EIS?
We'll take the lead of the executive and mineral council.
Thank you.
Before we step down and do something like that.
Well, and I was only going to say, because we have hired a person, a consultant, to prepare a comment for us. It needs to be if you make a comment, make sure we're not at cross
We're not
cross
gonna make any
purposes.
comment,
Okay.
not until we get the permission of the executive and mineral council. All that.
Council. Thank you.
I'm sorry, one follow-up comment. We were presented with 4 options, and just as ones to be aware that 3 of those are restricting areas in Osage County where we can't do anything. And there's one option, we keep things as it is, but to my ear, from attorneys from DC and everywhere, they're not interested in that. They want to restrict large areas where we have no activity, no extraction, no mineral activity whatsoever, in favor of non-Osages in the county. So I've made that publicly known. I'm very disappointed in this whole EIS process. So again, if we could somehow, the federal government could cross paths into our nation. I don't know what's restricting the federals from doing it. We need them to have a discussion with our nation, because I think we have capabilities within our own means to make big decisions, and you've got a really good team here. I don't know what's the next step. We need to have that discussion. Did you guys get involved with our attorneys or what? But I'd like to see it happen, Chairman, somehow.
Listen, that's the reason for today. We'd like to open that dialogue and see where you would like to place ones as a working entity to help you acquire those very things. We feel the same way.
Council.
Mr. Pipestem, is it possible you can have a discussion with ones and see if we can maybe look at, and then specifically tribal authority involvement, the nation, and all the entities that they have, and see if we at least get into this discussion?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we should figure out the right way to do this. I know we have a draft EIS that we're responding to now. And at the comment period in BIA last week, I mentioned that even though the government has proposed 4 different alternatives, that 2 of which are restrictive and I believe in conflict with the 1906 Act, the amendments to the 1906 Act, we still have a very highly technical document of over 500 pages, and we're preparing comments on that, but it seems that based upon the general interest of the Minerals Council to try to take more authority and support with the nation to address some of the inefficiencies that we face, that the Minerals Council deals with, that ones could be an important part of that.
Thank you, Council.
If I may,
Go ahead, sir.
my next meeting, we'll have another meeting. Do we have time you can have the communication with ones, maybe present to us what you think is an appropriate step forward?
I'd love if we have time even today to have a conversation, but on your schedule as well.
Also, we had worked with Dave tonight on the IC Week over this DEIS, but we'd also talked about our position with you over the remediation. We know that there's elements in that, but you hit on the big one. It's over that water element, that we might need to get ahead of that curve because that's what's will be next. Council, do you have any other questions?
I do.
Councilman Rick.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Reddick, have you introduced yourself to the Osage Producers Association?
We've been hesitant to do that because we felt we were fully prepared and qualified. Now we're ready to open that door as well. We feel there's a great working relationship could evolve that would help in many aspects of permitting and movement of regulation challenges. We think we have a natural sidestep with it and we move along with it.
Yeah, because I understand that they have submitted their comments
Yes.
just recently. And as you will probably remember, in 2015, they challenged the last EIS in federal courts. I testified in that hearing, and they prevailed. And I anticipate when the federal government was here at one of our meetings, our biannual consultation meeting, I had specifically asked them if this new EIS that hadn't been rolled out yet was going to be much different than the previous one, and I didn't get a real satisfactory answer. So I anticipate. I didn't even bother to go to the meeting in Pahuska because I've been there, done that. All it was the federal government telling us what we're gonna do, how we're gonna have to do it, and we can, just have to take it. And it really got kind of testy. I mean, security had to come in at one point because of some of our surface owners got real aggressive. But I anticipate, I really do, I don't have any optimism that this new 500-page document is gonna be satisfactory to the producers, and probably not to us either. I anticipate more litigation, and the ones might be helpful in preparation of litigation, and it's way premature for that now. But I anticipate just going back to court. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Council, any other questions? With that being said, you've honored us today. I would like to end with this part. I've never spent finer moments representing my people than I did with your father and Councilman Reddickles. It's a joy in my heart, and his blessings are forever. Thank you so much, Uncle. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Would like a short break? You'd like to jump into another one?
Right.
Let's take a short 5-minute break.
Good morning. How you doing? Good to see you.